Good evening. I call this June 11, 2024 meeting of the Pinellas County School Board to order. We will begin this evening with an invocation led by Dr. Ely Darling, Ambassador for Peace, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chair Carol Cook and the National Anthem. Please stand and remain standing until the completion of the National Anthem.
Am I praying now? Okay, thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Your words say, where two or three are gathered together in my name, there I am with them. So, Lord, we come before you with bowed heads and humble hearts, inviting you, the Holy Spirit, to take full reign and authority over this meeting. We come as an act of obedience to pray not only for our elected and appointed officials whom you have given the responsibility over the control, operation, organization, management, and the administration of the schools within Pinellas County, but every teacher, staff member, student, parent, and concerned citizen represented in this room. We come bombarding heaven right now that you provide our leaders with wisdom, integrity, character, courage, and a willingness to set aside self and selfish gains and do what is right and do what they have been chosen to do. May they not look to themselves for all the answers, but may you give them your eyes to see and your ears to hear and the ability to do for your people. Professionals, parents, staff, students are frustrated, and many who have been called to pour into the next generation of our future leaders due to the many challenges they face are walking away from a time-honored profession. We ask you, Lord, to refresh, restore, and breathe the breath of life back into their souls, that they may continue to carry the torch until their assignment is over. But until that time comes, may they stand boldly against any principality that impedes their ability to inspire, motivate, and cultivate among their peers a platform that is centered around unity, peace, compassion, and a willingness to think outside of the box for the collective well-being of all. Protect them and shield them from all hurt, harm, and danger. Let us all agree here and now to be the architects for a better future that plants the seed for the next generation of leaders to come. For we must be the example and the role model for the change we wish to be. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated. What a wonderful pre-taped national anthem to choose. That was just a couple of weeks ago at Dunedin High School graduation, and it was a great privilege to be there and hear them sing. That was beautiful. It also gets us ready for what we're about to see next. So just a couple of weeks ago, all of we here and many of you had the opportunity to experience many Pinellas County Schools high school graduations. We would now like to share a video with you about that.
If there's one thing that you should remember from this speech today, it's that you're here. It's that you mattered, you did it, and that you should be proud because you're not just doing this for yourself, but you're doing this for those in the past, those in the present, and those in the future.
There are 3 things you can't recover in life: the word after it's said, the moment after it's missed, and the time after it's gone. I hope that we are friends for the rest of this life and every life after that. Thank you for being my friend and growing up with me.
Help the next person. Kindness is contagious. If we all do this, I promise you the world will be a better place. You are perfect the way you are. Let others see you for your true character.
And I thought about those fond memories that I made, about those memories that I made with the people, about every moment that I hold near and dear to my heart, the hysterical laughter in the classroom with my friends and my teachers, when it wasn't about the school, but about the relationships that I had built here. It became blatantly obvious that I did this for the people. That's what makes it worth it.
Over the past 4 years, you guys have not only been my best friends, but my family as well. I couldn't have done this without every single one of you and the amazing bond that we've created through our program. You guys have forever changed my life, and I'm so thankful for all of you. I can't wait to see you all become amazing nurses one day.
Challenge yourself. Do not be afraid to make a mistake. If you fall, get back up.
It truly takes a village, and I'm grateful to my village for never allowing me to give up. Live for the moment, stand out, work hard and do your best, and always remember your village.
Congratulations, class of 2024.
You are no longer students, but you are alumni.
Go forth and do amazing things.
Enjoy the journey.
What a wonderful job. Great job, Eric, and our communications team. That was really a beautiful video. I know all of us up here were at some of those graduations, and to be able to relive it like that was really beautiful. We graduated, Pinellas County Schools graduated about 7,200 students. Is that right?
6,600 so far.
Oh, I was a little off. 6,600 students, but that's 6,600 people into our communities doing amazing things, and it was really beautiful. So thank you for that video. The next item on our agenda, introduction of professional and community organization representatives. Ms. Mascarenas.
Staff, it is my pleasure to introduce the following representatives of community and professional organizations. Representing the Pinellas Educational Support Professionals Association, or PESPA, Nelly Henez, President. From the Pinellas Classroom Teachers Association, Jamie Beck. Members of the media in attendance, Juan Posada from Telemundo 49. Thank you.
Thank you. Amendments to the agenda. Mr. Hendrick, are there any amendments to the agenda?
Madam Chair, there was one amendment to the agenda that was made last week and was posted for the board and the public, and it was item 7.5, request approval of the personnel recommendations of administrative appointments for 2024-2025. There were a few updates. There were some names that were duplicated, listed as both an assistant principal and principal. They can only have one, and so they're principal, and so those have been updated.
Thank you. Board members, any amendments to the agenda? No. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I make a motion.
Motion by Mrs. Long and a second by Mrs. Meyer. All those in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0. Please note that Mrs. Edmonds is unable to join us tonight, so all votes will reflect 6-0. Or excuse me, will reflect 6 members. We don't have anything on our special order agenda tonight. We'll move to public comments on agenda items. Mrs. Hauk, do we have any speakers to agenda items today?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have one speaker for agenda items.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Our speaker is Mark Clutho. He's speaking to item 7.20, 7.32, and 7.33.
Mark Clutho, Largo. 7.20, casualty insurance. Oh, are there going to be some casualties? That is for certain. Headline reads, hurricane season may be unlike any other. And takeaways from last week's Spotlight Tampa Bay Forum on Climate Change. And then this headline here, troubling news from the Doomsday Glacier. The big melt is underway. Yeah, you want to talk about casualty. Is Pinellas headed for that? And then there's this headline, perfect storm recipe. Yeah, it's not going to be pretty. And then, of course, you have these buildings. What are they going to do? They're going to further what we have here. Yeah. Can you read a graph? Or is this above your pay grade? I don't know. The headline, March 10th, or March 10th month in a row with record heat, scientists say. Well, that's what happens when you make these same stupid buildings. You just won't do your part. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Nearly 25 years I've been bringing the science of high-performance passive solar building. And you continue to ignore it. And this is what happens.
Madam Chair, there are no more speakers for agenda items.
Thank you. Moving on to unfinished business, we have two public hearings tonight. The first one, item 6.1, public hearing to consider the amendments to policy 5420.03, reporting student progress and class ranking in high school. This is the second reading and there are no changes. May I have a motion to approve this item?
A motion.
Motion by Mrs. Kane and a second by Mrs. Long. Mr. Hendrick, would you introduce it, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to call up Leanna Eisen, our Director of Strategic Planning and Policy, to introduce this item and talk about the process that we went through to get here tonight. Of course, it is the second reading. It did go to a workshop as well. Mrs. Eisen.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, Superintendent Hendricks, staff, and community. In item 6.1, we are proposing amendments to policy 5420.03, reporting student progress and class ranking high school, specifically section 5, final examinations. The policy was reviewed along the same timeline as the Code of Student Conduct and was informed by feedback from principals, district staff, and the student rights and responsibilities. We reviewed these changes in depth during the March school board workshop and during first reading on April 23rd. The amendments include 3 clarifications, adding the Cambridge ACE exam as an acceptable exam in lieu of teacher-developed exams, clarifying language describing the second quarter of each semester, broadening language regarding state-required exams, removing specific exam titles. The substantive amendments in Section 5E include clarifying that if a student has 5 or more absences, they will be required to take the exam for the courses in which they have the absences, adding the grade of C to qualify for exam exemption, and allowing students to exempt the exam in both semesters of a year-long course. We recommend approving these amendments.
Thank you. Mrs. Hauk, are there any speakers to this item?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Board members, is there any discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor to approve item 6.1. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 6-0. The next item, 6.2, a public hearing to consider the amendments to policies 5500.07, Code of Student Conduct, Discipline, and 5500.08, Code of Student Conduct, Misconduct that requires specific consequences, and 5517.01, Policy Against Bullying and Harassment. This is the second reading, and there is one change to 5500.08. May I have a motion to approve this item?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Peters and a second by Mrs. Cook. Mr. Hendrick, would you introduce it, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Similarly, this is the second reading. It has been to workshop 2 times. Mrs. Eisen, our Director of Strategic Planning and Policy, is going to walk us through that process as well as update the board on the one change since the first reading. Mrs. Eisen.
6.2 proposes amendments to the Code of Student Conduct policies. Annually, the Code of Student Conduct is reviewed in its entirety by multiple groups that consist of district staff, school-based staff, principals, student rights and responsibilities, parents, and the Pinellas Classroom Teachers Association. Stakeholders also have opportunities to provide feedback on the Code of Student Conduct and other school board policies through our Let's Talk Contact Us button on our website. Additionally, this year, we included a campaign for stakeholders to provide input specifically regarding the use of cell phones and other wireless communication devices. The annual review of these policies looks for alignment with legislation, evidence-based best practices, and district practices. As a result of this year's review, which included 2 school board workshops in March and April, we are proposing amendments to 3 of the Code of Student Conduct policies. I'll review them in numerical order. The first is Policy 5500.07, Code of Student Conduct, Discipline. There are technical changes throughout this policy, mostly reflecting the state's threat management terminology. Most of the substantive amendments to this policy are in Section 3, cell phones and other wireless communication devices. The amendments include updating terminology and definitions for new terms, specifying acceptable use and storage of cell phones and wireless communications devices, including earbuds and headphones for students at each elementary, middle, and high school levels, outlining exceptions to the grade level parameters, moving and adding to the clearly identified unauthorized use of devices, and rewording the responsibility and liability portion and making it a standalone section within the policy. Policy 5500.08, Code of Student Conduct, Misconduct that requires specific consequences. There are technical changes throughout this policy, again, mostly related to the state's threat management terminology and references to our own Educational Alternative Services program. In Section 2, Tobacco, Nicotine, and Vaping, we clarified the opening paragraph. For Section 3, Illegal Drugs, Alcoholic Beverages, Harmful and Other Substances, Section A2 was updated to reflect the new legislation regarding over-the-counter medications. New since the first reading is an added definition for the term distribute in Section C. And in Section D2, we updated Section D2 to reflect that violations of this section of the policy may result in reassignment. The last substantive amendment to this policy is in Section 4, Dangerous Objects, which clearly states that no student shall possess, handle, or transport dangerous objects on school board property or to school-sponsored activities. Policy 551701, the policy against bullying and harassment. The technical edits in this policy update the references to documentation systems and the external programs available for training. And the substantive amendments to this policy are in sections 8 and 13, in which the language was clarified to articulate that the parent of a victimized student will be notified regardless of the severity of the incident. And last, section 11, we added that the procedures include parental notification as required. We recommend approving the amendments to these 3 Code of Student Conduct policies.
Thank you. Mrs. Hauk, are there any speakers to this item?
No, Madam Chair, there are no speakers.
Thank you. Board members, any discussion? Thank you. With that, we have a motion on the floor to approve item 6.2. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion.
Motion by Mrs. Long and a second by Mrs. Cook. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0. One item on the non-consent tonight, item 8.1, request approval to purchase 2024-2025 instructional materials. May I have a motion to approve this item?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Peters and a second by Mrs. Myers. Mr. Hendrick, would you introduce it?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Call up Dr. Dan Evans, our Chief Academic Officer, to talk more about this. I don't want to steal all his thunder, but we, of course, have already gone through the process of adopting these materials. This is the purchase. Dr. Evans?
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Madam Chair, fellow board members, Mr. Hendrick, and staff. The item before you this evening is our annual request to fund the purchase of our adopted state-approved instructional core materials for the upcoming school year. That's going to be for the school year 24-25. This request includes the planned purchase of our core instructional materials for science for next year, the selection of those materials, the review process for those materials, and the timeline for the science adoption. Again, that's for next year, 24-25. We'll follow a similar process that we used this year, as you all remember, for our social studies adoption. Pursuant to state statute, the board must approve the purchase of core instructional materials as a separate non-consent item, and that is the request before you tonight. I want to thank once again, as I do each time, Ms. Megan Fry, our program coordinator for instructional materials, for her efforts in organizing our process and timelines, and her efforts are much, much appreciated. That is all.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. Board members, any discussion? No? We have a motion on the floor to approve item 8.1. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 6-0. New business, items introduced by the superintendent. Mr. Hendrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I wanted to start this evening by welcoming Gary Jeppesen, our new Chief Financial Officer. He's been with the district now about 2 months, but tonight's his first night here joining us at the board table. So welcome, Mr. Jeppesen. Next meeting, you'll be speaking because we'll be talking about the budget at the workshop, so don't get too comfortable not speaking. I do want to thank the board tonight for your approval of the 2 policies, but specifically the second one in the Code of Conduct. And I know we didn't have a lot of discussion tonight, but for the benefit of the public and just to remind the board, we had hours and hours and hours of discussion at workshop and previous meetings. The question always is, okay, now the policy passes, how do we implement it? And the implementation, of course, is the work of our staff. And so our area superintendents already have plans this summer to meet with principals and staff to go over the new policies and then to work on the implementation of those. That will roll out in preschool with all teachers and staff, and then, of course, into the school year. One of the things that the board discussed and requested as part of the implementation of that policy was a digital citizenship campaign. So it's not just about put your phone away, but how do we educate our students on why it's important not to have your phone out in school, but also how to use your phone appropriately. And so you're going to hear more about that campaign in July at our July workshop, and that will also roll out at the same time as the implementation of the new cell phone plan. Today, moving on to the referendum, today I want to thank the Pinellas County Board of Commissioners. Today they unanimously approved a resolution that the board previously passed to place the Pinellas County Schools referendum on the November 5th ballot. The referendum will serve to recruit and retain quality teachers and support staff, preserve music, art, and reading classes, and provide current technology. And of course, our Independent Citizens Committee will continue to oversee the referendum spending. And we talked about that at length at workshops in this meeting. I want to thank Mrs. Hine, who went on behalf of the board with me today to the meeting. They didn't call on us to speak. They voted unanimously and moved on, and that was okay too. You saw the video on high school graduations. I want to thank the board members who attended our graduations. We had representation at all 28 Pinellas County Schools graduations. 6,600 students so far graduated. Dozens more will graduate this summer, and we'll celebrate those students on August 29th at our final celebration for the class of 2024 at our summer graduation. In the last week or so, I've attended 2 state meetings. This is the time of year where a lot of the staff attends those state meetings, one with the Commissioner of Education, Manny Diaz, in Miami, and the other with many of you in Tampa at the FSBA and School Superintendents Convention. I just wanted to hit a couple of the highlights for the board and the public. At the Commissioner's Summit in Miami, he really emphasized growing the teacher pipeline. And in fact, we presented a little bit on our teacher apprenticeship partnership with St. Petersburg College and the work that we're doing there. At the meeting last week with the State Department of Education, just a few reminders. By state law, district scores on the FAST assessment will be released by June 30th, so we're anticipating a district-by-district look at that sometime this month. We anticipate the Department of Education, though, releasing those probably ahead of that June 30th deadline is what they shared with us, so probably in the next 10 days. Also, of course, our schools and our district are awaiting those school grades. That is delayed a little bit this year because of the new assessments. And state law requires in the second year of a new assessment that the State Board of Education look at statewide scores, set new cut scores for school grades, and they will do that at their July 24th State Board meeting. And so we'll look forward to that in July. But a reminder to parents, of course, they have the results of their individual student assessments now within 24 hours of the student taking it, because every one of those assessments is now taken online. And so that's available both in Focus as well as the statewide portal. Last week was also discussion about House Bill 1473, which has been signed into law by the governor, around school safety. And there's a lot of discussion around the state around that law because of the requirement to lock the doors and gates of every school building, not just the school itself, the exterior of the school, but literally every building within the school. School safety specialists from around the state, including our own Sean Joel and his team, are meeting in Orlando this week to develop the guidelines and implementation. We'll provide an update to the board at the July workshop on that as well, and also for teachers as they return to work during the preschool days. I want to thank the board for your approval of the appointments tonight of school principals and assistant principals, as well as the meeting that we had on May 30th. Lots of discussion around new principals, and we're excited to have them start the summer ready to plan for next year, so thank you for that meeting. It's true that there's a few more changes than previous years, and over half of the transfers were seasoned, successful principals who raised their hand and said, I want a new challenge. I've been at this school for a decade, sometimes more, and we honored that request. We want to thank our principals who are taking on those new challenges and congratulate the 8 first-time principals that we hired who will begin next school year. Summer Bridge is now in its second week, and the elementary Summer Bridge has completed with over 8,000 students enrolled at 38 of our elementary schools. Students and teachers are engaging in hands-on science and STEM activities while also providing students on specific targeted benchmarks to prepare them for the next school grade or next school year. We also are working with our third grade students who by state law face retention if they haven't had a certain test score, and our students have been successful already, some of them being promoted already this week based on the work of all year long and a little bit this summer. Our middle school and high school students are in credit recovery programs, getting ready for next year as well. And most of our camp programs are in July, but we do have the Ignite Summer Camp, our music camp for students in grades 6 through 9, which has been featured on a number of local news outlets in the last week or so. It was last week and this week. Their big performance for their parents is coming up on Thursday. I want to congratulate Safety Harbor Middle School, who is now our 3rd International Baccalaureate Middle Year program. The International Baccalaureate framework is grounded in student-centered learning that empowers students to be curious about the world around them and solve problems. And 3 weeks ago, Safety Harbor went through the final step of that rigorous 2-year evaluation and made the cut and are now an official middle years program. They join James B. Sanderlin and Largo Middle School's IB World Schools as our 3 middle school IB programs and the first one in North County. I want to congratulate Broadway superstar Alana Hogan of Gibbs High School. On Saturday, she graduated, and on Sunday, she won the Broadway Stars of the Future Best Performance Award at the regional competition for the National High School Musical Theater Awards. She will represent the Straz Center and all of Tampa Bay at the national competition in New York City on June 24th. Congratulations to Alana. I think the board and many others have heard her sing at a number of our events in the last couple of months. Also want to congratulate Madeira Beach student Braden Lyons. I told you recently about his Geography B winnings. He competed in the national competition, finished 9th in the country for maps and flags, and as I already mentioned, is going to Vienna, Austria this July to compete in the international competition. Students at Nina Harris Exceptional Student Education Center have a new therapeutic clubhouse made possible through a donation from the Mr. Strong Foundation. The custom-designed innovative space gives special needs students various options and opportunities for multi-sensory play. We're grateful for Mrs. Michelle Morales, who leads the Mr. Strong Foundation, and thank her for bringing this opportunity to our students. As the school year concluded, we celebrated our first-year teachers as the Rookie of the Year event. Our Teaching and Learning and Human Resources Department celebrated these teachers. About 60 were able to attend, which included breakfast and time for connecting and reflecting on their first year in the classroom. We also celebrated our Emerging Teachers of the Year. Dr. Evans gave a great keynote speech, and we were glad to honor our new teachers and thank them for their service this year. And as we continue with this summer, we have our Summer Break Spot program for free meals for students this summer that our Food and Nutrition Department helps to organize and collaborate with. There's 100 locations across Pinellas County, and we help to support those as well as a number of other community agencies. Families can find out more about that through a link on our website. And as a reminder to staff and students, substitutes, volunteers, anybody who works or is affiliated with Pinellas County Schools, you have the opportunity to ride PSTA free all summer long. The bus, the trolley, if you're out on the beach, the Sunrunner, anywhere in between, just show your ID or your affiliation with the school district and you ride for free. And as we can finish my comments for this particular meeting, I want to emphasize our superintendent standout, who's been recognized for core values. And this particular meeting, I want to recognize Mr. Ryan Langford, a welder journeyman in our maintenance department who's been with Pinellas County Schools for 2 years. He is an excellent, and one of his colleagues said about him, he's an excellent welder and fabricator. He worked diligently through a planning and design process to help us come in compliance with a recent audit finding that the district had. He used his skills and knowledge to create a one-of-a-kind panic gate to help secure a particular device that needed security. He also led and assisted and was flawless with this completion. Thank you to Mr. Langford for his work in this project and all the work he does and all of our employees each and every day. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Items introduced by the school board attorney.
I have no report this evening. Thank you.
Items introduced by the board. Mrs. Cook?
Yes. Mr. Hendrick mentioned the FSBA conference. And during that meeting, we have our consortium meeting for the council, the Greater Florida Consortium of School Boards. And I just want to congratulate, even though she's not here, I'd like to congratulate board member Edmund for being nominated and voted and moving into the vice presidency. As it turns out, the person who is president will not seek re-election. So she will also then take into consideration, she will be president in November, the end of November, and then also serve the year that she was supposed to. So she will be the longest serving president of the consortium that we've had so far. But I did want to congratulate her, even though she's not here. I'm sure she'll be listening at some point as to what the meeting was all about, for representing Pinellas County as she moves forward in her presidency.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention a couple of things around the cell phone policy as well, because I know it's been of interest. And it was a very thoughtful review. It was last July that it was first raised as a workshop topic. I believe it was September that we first looked at it in workshop. The staff did a great job, and school board members each reviewed and researched policies across the country, different thought leaders on this topic, but also spoke to the teachers and leaders and students and parents that are in our schools here in Pinellas to ultimately come up with what we felt was the strongest policy. One thing that was really important for us was for it to be clear and consistent across our district, and I believe we've gotten it there at this point. And as Mr. Hendrick referred to, it's one thing to tell them to put them away, which as a mom with 2 kids, I'm super in supportive. But it is another thing to also teach appropriate use of. And so I also want to thank the staff who I know has been working hard on researching the best K-12 digital citizenship curriculum that is out there and putting together something that is custom for our district. I look forward to seeing that roll out. So thank you for the time and effort spent on that. I also want to share that I currently serve as the chair of what's called the Health and Human Services Leadership Board. It's a group of several school board members, several county commissioners, the sheriff, the Department of Health, state attorney, public prosecutor. So it's a group of cross-agency officials. And the topic that we have currently taken up is technology and youth. I think we have all seen the impacts of technology on our youth, if not on ourselves, over the last number of years, and it's rising to a level of attention, across the country, if not across the world. One of the things this Health and Human Services Leadership Board is looking at is developing and funding a public information campaign that would reach across the county, and the language of it would be dovetailed with our K-12 digital citizenship curriculum. Because yes, Pinellas County Schools touches many, many families and people across this county. We have at least 100,000 people moving through our school system every day, but there are almost 1 million people in Pinellas County. And so if Pinellas County wants to move the needle on the public health issue of mental health when it comes to technology usage, then it has to be broader than Pinellas County Schools. So I'm very grateful to this board for looking at what we can do to do that, and I'll keep our school board apprised as we continue to look at that work. I was able to attend the ribbon cutting of the Mr. Strong Foundation clubhouse at Nina Harris, and I too just want to thank parent Michelle Morales who made this happen. It is remarkable when your own child experiences something and it can be better, and you have the energy and effort and you put it into making it better for everybody's kids. And that's what she has done there, and it is amazing to see. Also, we have right here in Pinellas County, we have a leader when it comes to adaptive assistant technologies for students with disabilities. And I just want to encourage that you don't have to be at Nina Harris. You can be at any of our schools. And if you're somebody who needs those kinds of adaptive technologies for your students, we want to support that. So I just want to raise that up as well. And that's all I have to share tonight. Anything else? No? Review of board requests. Mrs. Woodford, do we have any requests?
I did not note any board requests.
I did not either. Okay, with that and seeing no other business, I adjourn this meeting, and we'll move to public participation. Mrs. Hauk, do we have any speakers for public participation?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 3 speakers this evening.
Thank you. I'm going to read this statement on our public speaking here. So we are moving into the public comment on the general business of the district. Please note that the views and comments of the public speakers are their own and not endorsed nor sponsored by the school board or district. We cannot ensure the accuracy of statements made, but will review concerns that are raised and take appropriate action, which may include clarifications or the referral of speakers to the proper staff member for assistance. The board is committed to a standard of civility and decorum in conducting our meetings. This includes refraining from clapping or making audible noises during or after a speaker's comments. We appreciate you assisting us in maintaining a civil and constructive environment. Additionally, please note that although the board members or Superintendent Hendrick may leave the dais briefly, there are speakers in the back room, and we will continue to be able to hear your comments. Thank you. Mrs. Hauk.
Thank you. The first 2 speakers are David Childress and Mark Clutho.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, staff. Thank you greatly for hearing me. My name is David Childress. I've been a substitute teacher in Pinellas County off and on for about 24 years now. I'm retired Florida Army National Guard, but before that I was in the Coast Guard. Before that I was in the Navy. Anyway, I'm here to speak about food science and human nutrition. So I do have a degree in food science and human nutrition from University in Florida. And what I've come to notice over the years of my time in service to the county is that the food that we've been serving the children have become increasingly processed. I'd like a moment to read the definition of what's considered ultra-processed food. Ultra-processed foods, sometimes also referred to as highly processed foods, are foods that have been significantly altered from their original form. They are typically made from substances extracted from foods, such as fats, starches, sugars, salts, and hydrogenated oils. These foods often contain a patchwork of ingredients, additives, and preservatives, which are added to enhance taste and flavor, making them more appealing to consumers. The additions also make ultra-processed foods shelf-stable, meaning they last longer in the pantry before expiring or going bad. If I could, I did a very low-tech thing. I downloaded all of the items that are right off our food service program in Pinellas County. And I think there's enough to have at least one apiece. If I could pass them down. I took a moment to highlight, yes. One of those items has 84 ingredients in it. Now, the items that are highlighted in orange, those are fructose, or pearl sugar, or invert sugar, or sorbitol, or xylitol, or cane sugar, or any other number of ways that the manufacturer, Kellanova, finds to increase the sugar content. Those items that are highlighted in orange are items that are like dextrose, maltose, cornstarch. They act very much in the way that fructose does. That is to inhibit a hormone known as leptin. Leptin is what tells us how much food, how much energy.
Thank you.
Are we done?
It's 3 minutes.
Oh, all right then.
Thank you.
I didn't realize this is the first. I could be up there for an hour.
Mark Clutho, Largo. Again, hurricane season may be unlike any other. Again, the word correlation just doesn't seem to be something you can grasp. And again, troubling news from the Doomsday Glacier, the big melt underway. To conduct the study, scientists used high-resolution satellite radar data to find evidence of the intrusion of warm, high-pressure seawater many miles beneath the grounded ice of the Thwaites Glacier. Future projections of global sea level rise will have to include this new data. The projections will go up, he said. As it melts, Thwaites could cause ocean levels to rise as much as 2 feet, researchers said. But the glacier is also a natural dam to other ice in West Antarctica. If that ice is released into the oceans, levels could rise 10 feet, researchers estimate. And of course, they mentioned that it won't be good for Florida. Yeah, so what do? You make that stupid building up there at Clearwater High School oriented the wrong way with all that West glass. You know what it is in a word? Malfeasance. You know, as I said before, the Anasazi Indians over 1,500 years ago knew that the first thing that you did was proper orientation. You people are quite literally criminals. There isn't any other way to see it. You know, here we are with heat indexes well over 90 degrees and you're wearing coats. This is sick. Again, doomsday glacier. What do you think the future?
The next speaker is Tim Conroy.
My name is Tim Conroy, and I'm a proud member of Indivisible North Pinellas. Thank you, Superintendent Hendrick, board members, and staff for all the work you do to help students succeed. Today, I want to say Happy Pride. Remind all that love is louder and celebrate LGBTQ+ students, educators, and families for their rich contributions to our lives, and to Pinellas County Schools across every subject level, and sports teams and academic teams. Let's recognize gay, straight alliance clubs and schools and honor how they promote inclusivity and foster a sense of belonging and community that helps students succeed socially and academically. We must guard against the forces of intolerance and hate, prejudice and bullying in our schools, and help our students understand it's wrong to bully, to instigate, or to stand innocently by watching someone get hurt. We must allow students to write and tell their stories and provide access to a wide variety of LGBTQ+ books so students learn lessons that respect differences as well as the struggles that bond us to the community so we can prevent tragedies that, like the shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando or at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. Let's always remember we are a nation and public school system built on responsibility, service, and the strength and gifts of our differences. Live love out loud every month. Say Happy Pride. Thank you.
Madam Chair, there are no more speakers.
Thank you. Thank you for being here this evening.